Man, where do I even begin with this video? I love Cars. It is, in my opinion, not just one of, but probably the best movie Pixar's made. It has an amazing story, a very unique world, along with some very charming characters, a love letter to Route 66, and a brilliant message that uses both Route 66 and NASCAR as tools for that message. But as I've grown older, I've noticed that some critics don't feel the same way. While Cars definitely has a lot of fans, there's also a lot of people who just say that Cars is the black sheep of Pixar and that it's just average at best. I, of course, couldn't disagree less. It seems like a lot of these people have just pretty much overlooked the movie and have never really taken the time to actually understand what makes Cars such a masterpiece. So today, in order to celebrate 20 years of the first Cars movie, I'm going to talk about what makes Cars such an amazing movie for me, and why it personally is my favorite movie of all time. Because, hey, we all have our preferences on what we think is the best movie of all time. Truth is, there really is no such thing as the best movie of all time. It's all a matter of opinion. But for me, there's one very, very unique reason why Cars, out of all my favorite movies, just so happens to be my favorite of the favorites. And hey, just because Cars is my favorite Pixar movie doesn't mean I don't love the other Pixar movies as well. I mean, I can see why any of these Pixar movies from Pixar's golden era would be anyone's favorite. They're all very beloved movies for all the right reasons, and there's something about each of them that makes them all fantastic. They all have something that people will love as kids because of what the movie is about, but will later love as adults because there's a deeper meaning that they can relate to. And for me, Cars just checks every mark in the box of what makes a great Pixar movie. And today, I will be doing just that. This is my retrospective of the first Cars movie and why it is so special to me. So strap your seatbelts in and let's get this show on the road. So, I know most of you all have seen this movie already. I mean, I would assume you would have, since my channel is mainly Cars centered, and a lot of you watching are probably subscribed because Cars. But anyways, I just want to let you all know that I'm actually doing a scene-by-scene review of this movie. I know it would be a lot easier to just go in, sum the plot up, and then talk about what makes the movie good. But for me, I just want to go scene by scene, so I'm sorry. The movie starts off with our main protagonist, Lightning McQueen, talking to himself inside his trailer.
Okay, here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed.
Honestly, I think we can all quote every bit McQueen said before Mac knocked on his trailer. All these bits of dialogue say a lot about who McQueen is. He's speedy, he's confident, he's lightning, and he was in such a rush to get to the race that he even skipped breakfast.
Breakfast? Maybe I should have had breakfast. A little brekkie could be good for me. No, stay focused. Speed.
With all of that, we basically see some glimpses of who these guys are. And then finally...
Hey, Lightning, you ready?
Oh, yeah. Lightning's ready.
McQueen starts his engine with very badass rock music playing in the background, which is something I definitely want to talk about in just a second here. But anyways, with that, we are introduced to the world of Cars. Let's not lie, This whole opening scene is so badass. It explains so much just without words. I mean, it shows why McQueen loves racing. I mean, the atmosphere, the lights, the speed, the fans. This scene also does a very good job introducing us to our three main Piston Cup racers in this film. Also, a little detail I wanted to mention. I absolutely love this movie's background characters. And I'm not just talking about the Piston Cup racers in this movie. No. This movie has a lot of great background characters. I just think the Piston Cup racers are just a unique highlight. I could just be glazing here, but these characters really make the world feel alive. And don't get me wrong, this isn't just a compliment solely towards Cars. I think a lot of movies out there have really unique background characters that make their world building feel more alive. But what makes Cars' background characters all the more unique to me is not just the fact that I'm a sucker for cars and really unique designs, but also the fact that they have their own bios too. Now, if I'm guessing correctly, Cars is probably not the only film to ever do this, so it's probably nothing really unique or anything, but it just feels so incredible that they put so much effort into these background characters' backstories. And by the way, if you want to know where these backstories can be found, I highly suggest you buy the Cars Blu-ray DVD. There you can actually play the Car Finder game, and that's where you get to learn all these backstories. Or if you want the easier way out, you can just buy the Meet the Cars book. Anyway, sorry about the tangent. You probably want to hear about the main characters, because obviously they're the most important part of this movie. Anyways, in this scene, we are quickly introduced to the King, Chick Hicks, and Lightning McQueen. We already knew some bits about McQueen before, but this is when we really start to get to know more about Lightning McQueen. Anyways, I'll just talk about the King and Chick Hicks right now, and save Lightning McQueen for later. The King is not only one of the oldest racers on the track, but he's also one of the most legendary too. Of course, he is based off of Richard Petty, who is one of the best NASCAR drivers of all time, and one of my favorites. Even if I prefer some other NASCAR drivers. So not only is he really cool based off of the fact that he's based off of one of the best drivers, but he's also a really important character in this movie as well. Not only is he used very well to showcase McQueen's character development near the end of the movie, but he's also the first to try and reason with McQueen, to try to get the message across.
This ain't a one-man deal, kid. You need to wise up and get yourself a good crew chief and a good team. You ain't gonna win unless you got good folks behind you and you let them do their job like they should.
On the other hand, however, we have Chick Hicks, the main antagonist of this film, and boy is he a great one. The dude is absolutely ruthless and intimidating as hell. Plus, you just love to hate him. Not to mention that he's also super funny as hell sometimes. Now, obviously, Chick Hicks isn't some super evil super villain or anything. He is basically just your standard racer douchebag who you're supposed to hate. But it works because it's realistic. Plus, I'd say they had a pretty good take on it. We'll talk more about McQueen as a character in a later scene when I feel like the time is right. But I'm just going to talk about some of the basic stuff that Daryl said here. Basically, in this scene, it's implied that McQueen came into the season unknown, but did so well as a rookie that everyone knew him now. And now, he even has a shot at winning the Piston Cup, because he is tied with the King and Chick Hicks. Also, one writing choice here that I really love is that they decided to start this movie at the end of the season and basically imply the most important details that led up to this event earlier in the season. It's a nice little subversion that I really like. There's no montage introducing these racers and then showing all the races, or at least most of them, leading up to this point. It doesn't drag on for so damn long. It's just straight to the point, while also highlighting some earlier races in the season. But speaking of getting straight to the point, I should probably get straight to the point as well. Sorry about that, just had to point that out there. So after a bit of the race that's already been going on, Chick causes a wreck, showing just how brutal he is in order to keep Lightning from winning the race. But of course, Lightning, being the skilled race car he is, manages to avoid this whole crash. And of course, we get a little detail on just how careless McQueen really is at the start of this movie. I was referring to the way he jumped off of Claude Scruggs' tires, by the way. Of course, knowing that staying out will gain him the lead, he stays out of the pits in order to take the lead. And this further pisses off Chick and gets him more riled up.
McQueen's not going into the pits.
You know, the rookie just fired his crew chief. That's the third one this season.
Well, he says he likes working alone, Daryl.
It's the little details like this, my friends. We get a nice little restart montage where we see McQueen just dominate the whole race while the King and Chick Hicks are still trying to make up ground as the race gets closer and closer to the end. And then we get this little scene.
Let's go! No tires, just gas! What? You need tires, you idiot!
Which ultimately backfires on him last minute. Y'all know how this goes. McQueen loses both his back tires. The King and Chick Hicks are managing to catch up. McQueen uses what he can to get to the finish line, and we get this.
And down the stretch they come, and it's...
It's too close to call!
I don't believe it!
Close to call!
It's unbelievable how this pretty much just somewhat predicted the future. During an interview, McQueen proceeds to shrug off what happened and act like that was what meant to happen, further showing off his arrogance. Of course, after they're finished putting his new tires on, Notchuck and the other pitties are rightfully pissed off with McQueen to the point where they just end up quitting. To which McQueen just says, oh, yeah, whatever. If there's one thing this intro has done really well, it's establishing the characters. Speaking of establishing, though...
I'm Mia! I'm Tia! We're like your biggest fans! And
Love the evening.
The balls Pixar had back then. I know you people are going to make comments about the whole Lightning McGroomer thing. And yeah, I know it's just for jokes and laughs and everything. But I'm just here to debunk the whole misconception that Mia and Tia are minors. And yeah, I know they're both 1991 Miata MX-5s. But minors cannot purchase tickets to a race without an adult there to supervise them. Again, I know the whole Lightning McGroomer thing was just a joke for satire and stuff, but I just want to clarify that for anyone who actually thought Cars 1 Lightning McQueen was a pet. Obviously, he was a little asshole, but he was not a Very sorry if that came off as me ruining a joke for you guys. While the King is trying his best to reason with McQueen and be honest with him about how stupid he's being, McQueen starts daydreaming about, well, Dinoco. This little daydream sequence basically explains Lightning's motivations throughout the movie. What he wants is to live life racing for Team Dinoco. Remember that for later. And McQueen really thinks that he had won the Piston Cup until...
We have a three-way tie!
And from this point forward, it is pretty clear what's going to happen next in the Piston Cup. Chick tells Lightning the first to get to California gets Dinoco all to himself, and that ultimately gets into McQueen's head.
Oh, we'll see who gets there first, Chick.
It's here that we meet McQueen's semi-hauler, Mac, in character involved in one of Pixar's best traditions at the time, and the only person on the team who McQueen has respect for. You see, the team that McQueen races for is none other than Rusty's, a bumper ointment for rusty old cars. And considering what bumpers are supposed to be the car equivalent to, it's pretty understandable, on its own at least, why McQueen would not want to be sponsored by this type of company. What's not understandable is this.
I hate rusty cars.
Lightning goes up on stage and basically just fakes it until he makes it. McQueen makes a speech, then leading to Rusty and Dusty talking about how they would love McQueen to be there another year. Obviously, McQueen doesn't want this, but he's not gonna just outright say it. It is then that we get one of the best travel montages I've ever seen. And that's going to just lead into another segment that I actually want to talk about, which is this movie's soundtrack. I absolutely love this movie's soundtrack to death. All of the instrumental songs in this movie do a very good job knowing when the song should sound country and when it should sound rock. You gotta give your props to Randy Newman here. Randy Newman already contributed to making great soundtracks for movies like Toy Story or Monsters, Inc. And Cars is certainly no exception here. But of course, we can't forget about the vocal songs covered by Sheryl Crow, Rascal Flatts, James Taylor, Brad Paisley, and John Mayer. As well as getting songs like Route 66 by Chuck Berry and My Heart Would Know by Hank Williams. Each of these songs are all fantastic and they all fit the tone of the movie perfectly. Whether it's Sheryl Crow's Real Gone that perfectly captures the essence of the race. The peaceful and poetic theme of Life is a Highway by Rascal Flatts, which not only fits the montage we're watching right now, but also gives a sense of adventure. Songs like Behind Blue Clouds that perfectly fit the background elements of Radiator Springs, James Taylor's Our Town, which perfectly just summed up how the townies feel about Radiator Springs and why it is so special to them. John Mayer's Route 66 that ends the movie off with a banger celebration. Or Brad Paisley's beautiful song called Find Yourself, which is part of what Pixar used to do with some of their end credits back in their golden era, where they put a song at the end of the movie into the end credits to sum up the message of the movie if it wasn't perfectly clear already. At the time, Pixar had already done this with other movies like A Bug's Life or Monsters, Inc. Of course, Cars wasn't the last time. They were going to do this again with movies like WALL-E. I'm just naming examples, by the way. No discredit to other Pixar movies which did this kind of thing. And boy does Cars blow it out of the water with their song at the end. When you're going through life, and you're so sure that the path you're on is the correct one, life becomes trickier all of a sudden, and maybe it was for the better. Maybe it was to guide you towards the right path. The point is, God has a path for all of us, and it's up to us to realize which path we should be on. Life is a road, and sometimes these detours were only just here to guide us to the path we should be on. My personal favorite song out of this whole entire album has to be Life is a Highway, but objectively speaking, Find Yourself is probably the most important one in this whole soundtrack. And I definitely recommend that you get this album on Apple Music if you have the app. That is, if you haven't already gotten the soundtrack, in which case you have not. What the hell was wrong with you? I'm just kidding. Hey, dude, did you forget that there was literally a song dedicated to this for two? No, I didn't. We'll get there when we get there, okay? Yeah, I actually decided to save Rolling in the Rear View by Headbone for that whole section for, well, those four certain cars once we get to their section. Yes, sir, I have a section dedicated to these four because how could I not bring them up?
I'd be a fool not to.
Now that we're out of the Piston Cup Stadium and we're going more across the world of cars, I guess it's time to break into another tangent about something. Something that a lot of lovers and haters of the movie have agreed that they don't like. The world building. You've probably seen those countless memes out there where people take the world building of cars so freaking seriously that they try to make sense of everything and even point out a lot of stuff that to them just doesn't make any sense. And it's not perfect, okay? I'll just admit that right now. Even I have a couple of things that I like to question about Cars 1's world building. But I honestly don't think the world building of Cars was ever f***ed up until Cars 2. Which is something I would like to talk about one day. I mean, sure, I don't understand why the hell these guys have door handles, but whatever. Honestly, there are a lot of human body parts that are also pretty useless too, like male nipples, for example. So...
I think we spent enough time on this subject by now. How about we just skip straight to the point and say that the world building of Cars is just utterly bad?
Well, no, actually, we are not, because the world building of Cars 1 is actually great. Could I at least explain before you all start attacking me? Look, I can see all of you guys already. Just let me explain. Now, obviously, there are a couple of glaring issues here, but minor plot holes like that don't stop this from feeling like a world built for vehicles to live in. Before we get into some of the most common criticisms I have seen for this movie's world building, I'd actually like to take a second to praise some of the world building in this movie that people have overlooked. For example, cars drinking oil just like how humans drink water. Or how everything is designed for a car to use. Tires are like shoes to the cars. Paint jobs are like clothes to cars. Oh yeah, and you remember how I explained earlier that this movie explains what the equivalent to, you know what is. They even tell you subtly what the car equivalent to a is. That is how good this movie's world building is. Speaking of which, there are actually all sorts of Piston Cup sponsors that give off neat little details on how this world works. Most of the doors always operate like garages. A lot of landscapes are shaped like cars. Tractors are like cows. Combines are like bulls. Volkswagen Beetles are the equivalents to bugs. Get it? It's because they're called bugs. Racing is pretty much the big sport in their world. Taxis are tour guides. Now, let's get into the section where I make some counter arguments and defenses for some of the quote-unquote bad world building that people have pointed out.
Do the cars have organs?
Those tongues are probably just as metallic as the rest of their body, okay, guys?
Why are there mattresses?
My guy, did you not see the car take off the mattress? He was probably going to sleep on it. And that's another thing. A lot of these cars probably prefer to sleep on mattresses just because it's like a little blanket for their tires.
But what about the forklifts? Are they slaves to the cars?
Honestly, considering how these cars can be whatever they want to be, it's probably the very same thing for forklifts as well. These forklifts aren't forced to do anything in specific, just hands-on activities that cars can't do. And honestly, the cars probably aren't the only ones getting the benefits. The forklifts are probably getting paid for what they're doing as well. So if anything, it's actually probably more of a symbiotic relationship between two of the most dominant species in this world.
Okay, but how do they build stuff?
Forklifts exist. Plus, not only that, but you would think that there are also construction vehicles in this universe too.
Fine, but what's the point of sidewalks in this universe?
Okay, so this may or may not have been intentional in the first movie, But there was an ad for Cars 2 where Guido had to try and cross the road. Also, before you make an argument that this doesn't really apply to the first movie since Guido was traveling on the road, I'm mainly talking about big cities where the cars never slow down, and Radiator Springs is a small town. So...
Okay, all that's fair and all, but how do the cars have sex?
maybe we shouldn't go there. If you do want to hear my interpretation, however, I will just say that I personally think that while the cars are banging, they just end up creating these parts that come out of the female's trunk, and they use those parts to build the child. Almost kind of like that one scene from Robots 2005, except way more graphic and could not happen since it's implied that the cars fall. All that said, however, the world building of Cars is still not perfect. It obviously still has problems, like, for example, how the hell is McQueen paying for all the stuff he's buying around town when he has no pockets? And where does he keep his money? And just what the hell are steamrollers? Are they robots that can't move on their own and rely on the cars to pull them? And if headlights are supposed to be the car equivalent to nipples, then what are these cars basically doing when they're driving at night? Is the road just one gigantic strip club for them? But those are all minor nitpicks that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, because despite those minor problems I pointed out, this world makes enough sense for it to work. So I really do not understand what your guys' problem is with Cars 1's world building. Cars 2, on the other hand, I can understand. But Cars 1? Dude, what the hell? Besides, you know what? We can play this very same game with the other Pixar movies from the Golden Age. This would be like if I asked, how can the toys breathe without lungs? How do the Incredibles get their powers when it's never explained how and they just get them? How in the world did the monsters ever even discover the human world? Or how are the robots in WALL-E sentient? It is actually baffling to me how you guys can easily overlook these other movies' slight world building problems, but when Cars has a couple of minor problems, it has apparently crossed some kind of line or something. And just so I am clear, I am not trying to say that all the other Pixar movies have bad or worse world building than Cars. All I'm trying to say here is that Cars is no different from the other Pixar movies in terms of world building. I mean, aside from talking cars, but that's it. What a load of hypocrisy. Anyway, sorry about that whole ass tangent. Back to the actual movie and what's going on here. Later on in the evening, McQueen gets a call from his agent Harv, who tells him that he got spare tickets and that he can give them to his friends. And then McQueen tries to think of friends, but he realizes he rarely has any aside from Mac. It's the first detail showing that while McQueen thinks he's happy living life in the fast lane, he actually feels kind of empty inside. Don't forget that. Anyways, McQueen notices that Mac is in the slow lane, to which he asks Mac to drive all night long. And this part's gonna kind of lead to my first gripe with this movie, but how the hell are we able to see Mac's face on this screen right now? Is there some sort of invisible camera or something? Then again, that is just a nitpick, so moving on. McQueen falls asleep, as you'd expect, and Mac is just trying to stay up all night long. And because we needed a coincidence to get Lightning McQueen into trouble, we get one of the hardest scenes in animation history. Words cannot describe how much I freaking adore this scene. These guys only have like 3 or 4 minutes of screen time, and yet they are 4 fan favorites that serve their role very well to the film. First off, not only are they a really cool nod to one of the greatest movies I've ever watched thanks to them, but they are really cool choices for gangster symbolism in this universe. Of course, if it wasn't for them, Lightning McQueen would have never gone to Radiator Springs. So they're really important, albeit really minor characters in this movie. These 4 delinquent road hazards, known as Boost, DJ, Wingo, and Snot Rod, all have an impact on how the story plays out from this point forward. In the Cars fandom, these guys are well known for their designs, reckless driving, speeding, and vandalism. They're especially known for their gangster-type personalities, and their role in Cars the video game where they challenge McQueen to a race, and then they try to rob Mac's trailer because they were paid by Chick to do a job. Though, in my personal opinion, they're just these 4 stupid teenagers who don't really know what they're doing and think it's all just harmless fun and games. Though they do look pretty smart in comparison to some drivers nowadays. I also think they cleverly represent the dangers of going way too fast and not slowing down and enjoying the road. Or maybe it's just me. Going back to what I said earlier about bios, these guys also have their own backstories, which really flesh out their characters. They all also have a very unique trait of the car guy. Boost is the guy who typically wants the most performance and power out of his car. DJ's the kind of guy who wants his car to be loud as hell. Wingo's the guy who loves the aesthetics of the car and loves putting really cool paint jobs on them. Plus, he's my favorite character in this whole damn franchise. And Snot Rod's the kind of guy who loves muscle cars. Yeah, he kind of represents the least of them, but he's still cool though. Also, props to Headbone for his song Rollin' in the Rearview. A rap song being in a movie which has a soundtrack mostly based off of country and rock is kind of weird, but it also fits for these guys as well. Now, I know that was a lot for a group of minor characters, but considering how they're a lot of people's favorites, myself included, I had to give them their own section. So they cause what they think is just a harmless little prank, and it ends up getting McQueen to fall out of his trailer. And obviously, coincidences that get characters into trouble are actually great ways to start off stories. Coincidences that save their asses, on the other hand, is just cheating. Please take my advice on that. Snot Rod saves Mac by waking him up, basically, and from this point forward, McQueen's life is changing for the better. After a bunch of semis wake McQueen up and he goes on a rampant search for Mac in desperation to find him, and a near-death experience with a train. Man, someone on the Pixar team loved the Fast and the Furious, but hey, then again, can you blame them? Lightning catches up to what he thinks is Mac, but turns out to be a completely different hauler that even hates being called a Mac truck. McQueen heads down a path that he thinks is the path to the interstate. At first, you might think McQueen's a dumbass for this, but then you remember that McQueen spends most of his time inside a hauler, and therefore, he never really sees the outside world as much. So, when it comes to the interstate, he never actually travels on it, and therefore, he actually doesn't know how to get there. And yes, he could have taken the other way back, but this road looks like a shortcut to him. McQueen wakes up a police officer, and that police officer chases him, but Sheriff's tailpipe starts backfiring, and I don't know what this is supposed to be the equivalent to, but McQueen thinks it's gunshots, so he keeps driving, and he looks even more like a reckless driver. We then cut from that dramatic chase scene to a very peaceful scene in the town of Radiator Springs, showing us the sights of the town and subtly showing how quiet it is, while also introducing us to a couple of characters in this movie. I think it's really nice and sweet that they actually had some establishing shots here of what this town is, instead of just throwing McQueen in here and then expecting us to get to know what town this is later. Of course, as this movie goes on, we're gonna learn more and more about Radiator Springs, but I just think this is a nice small little introduction to it. We get another adult joke
The 60s weren't good to you, were they?
Did I mention that I absolutely love this movie's comedy, by the way? After accidentally ruining the road, McQueen gets arrested, and then we cut to the next day, where everyone discovers that McQueen has just mysteriously gone missing, and it's all over the world. Another great establishing scene, by the way. Also worth mentioning is how much I love the fact that they get cameos in this scene. Another thing I forgot to mention about this movie's world building earlier is that it's supposed to be a similar parallel to our universe, but with talking cars, and feeling like it's made for talking cars. Anyways, McQueen wakes up in an impound lot, and he meets Mater, who is unfortunately one of Pixar's most controversial characters for reasons we will get into later. But me personally, I love this guy. McQueen discovers where he is after a little bit of a conversation with Mater, and he tries using Mater to get out of the town, but fails. So he ends up going to court, and it's here that we meet two very important characters, who will have their own sections later. Sally gives off a very important speech on why Radiator Springs is important to everyone, and that finally convinces Doc Hudson to make McQueen fix the road.
Seems like my mind has been changed for me.
No!
Nice ruling.
So Cars is a ripoff of Doc Hollywood, basically.
I hear you all saying. Now, I recently watched Doc Hollywood for the purpose of this video, and after doing so, I can safely say that no, Cars is not a ripoff of Doc Hollywood. Admittedly, it does have some similarities to Cars. They're both stories about a cocky douchebag who stumbles into this town on their way to California, sentenced to community service after doing property damage to the town on accident. The cocky protagonist wants out of the town before they realize they actually love the town and its residents, and he actually falls in love with somebody who lives there and wants to stay with her. And they both have an old man mentor figure. Now, hearing that out of context, you might think, oh, yeah, I guess Cars is a ripoff. Until you think about it for more than 5 minutes and the criticism is actually ludicrous. First of all, Lightning McQueen is literally a race car, while Ben Stone, the protagonist of Doc Hollywood, is a doctor. It's also not like McQueen was being too much of a jerk in the moment to really talk about what really happened and say, oh, it was an accident, unlike Ben Stone, who did. It's also not like Sally was single, unlike Ben Stone's love interest, who had a boyfriend up until near the end of the movie. It's also not like it took until near the end of the movie for McQueen and Doc to finally get along, unlike Ben Stone and his mentor, who were pretty much already getting along during the middle of the movie. It's also not like Doc Hollywood had a town that was based off a real-life town that eventually became forgotten. It's also not like McQueen was whisked away from the town and couldn't say goodbye to his friends, unlike Ben Stone, who did get to say goodbye to the residents before leaving. It's also not like McQueen was complaining every few minutes, while Ben Stone was keeping it to himself most of the time. And it is also not like Doc Hollywood was the first movie to ever even try this formula. Yeah, I think I made my point clear. I am a firm believer that anything can be unique in its own way while still taking inspiration from something else. This would be like if I said that Toy Story 3 was a ripoff of Toy Story 2 just because of a few similar plot details. Am I saying you should go out there and copy whatever you want? Hell no. What I am saying, however, is that you can take inspiration from whoever you want, just as long as you have your own unique spin on it and you're still original in your very own way. That is exactly what Cars does. It takes a little bit of inspiration from Doc Hollywood while still being original in its own way. Man, I'm really starting to think you guys are just trying to look for excuses to hate Cars. Surely there won't be any more beyond this point, right? Right? McQueen tries to escape again, only to realize that the townsfolk aren't actually as dumb as he thinks they are. So he's stuck paving the road to the point where Bessie decides to get his paint job dirty. Everyone in this town pretty much sees McQueen for the prick that he is. Lightning thinks that he's actually found somebody in the town who actually knows him, until it turns out that he's actually a Formula Racing fan and not into the Piston Cup.
What? Luigi, follow on with the fries.
And that's gonna lead into another segment, my friends. This time, about the townies. All of these guys are very integral to the story in their very own way. Luigi and Guido sell tires, which, as we know, are very, very vital to cars. Plus, Guido will be very vital later in the movie. Fillmore sells his own alternative fuel for cars who don't want gasoline, even though said alternative fuel is probably a drug. Sarge sells surplus for those in need of self-defense. Sally has a cozy cone motel for cars who want to stay. Mayor's a tow truck for cars in need of towing. Doc Hudson is a car who will give cars maintenance. Flo gives oil and gasoline to cars who are hungry. Ramon is all about fashion. And we all know the town wouldn't be safe if it weren't for Sheriff, Red, and Doc Hudson doing what they do best. And we can't forget about Lizzie and Stanley, who are basically the heart and soul of the town. Now, there are 4 certain characters who have their own sections for later, but we'll get there when we get there. So, a lost minivan couple, both named Minnie and Van, very clever on the writer's part, get lost in the town, and the townies do their best to try and persuade them to buy from one of their stores and take a map with them. But they fail, and the minivan couple just end up leaving, right before another adult joke. McQueen discovers that Chick made it to California first, so he absolutely rushes the job and just ends up traveling all the way down there, and it ends up looking far worse. Like that guy from Toy Story 2 said,
You can't rush art.
Doc is absolutely pissed off about this, and this leads to McQueen making a snarky remark.
Okay, look, Grandpa, I'm not a bulldozer. I'm a race car.
As we know, Doc already knew this, of course with the line that he said earlier, but he actually decides to use that to his advantage and trick Lightning into a trap. So Doc challenges Lightning McQueen to a race, and McQueen thinks he can easily beat him. And we get something that will be set up for later.
A pit stop.
Pit stop? The race is only 1 lap, guys. Uno lapo. Don't need any help. I work solo mio.
Fine. Race you away.
No pit stopo. Comprendo? Okay.
Obviously, this is another way of showing just how much Lightning is refusing to work with anybody, but it's also something that will overall have a very good payoff. Lightning speeds off while Doc doesn't even move an inch. He asks Mayor to come with him. Meanwhile, Lightning thinks he's about to win and he's got this in the bag until Doc gets the last laugh and tells Mayor to go fishing for him. And so McQueen is stuck paving the road. That whole scene actually implies a lot about Doc, and hints at something big coming up in the movie later. It shows that he knew McQueen was gonna crash, as Mater obviously said, but it also weirdly hints that Doc wasn't reaching up to his full potential. What, are you guys gonna try and tell me that Doc's some kind of race car or something? No, that couldn't be the case. The other townies keep asking McQueen if he'd like to buy something from their store, and he keeps refusing. And after a very, very long afternoon, and after a short segment where Doc just enjoys seeing McQueen get what he deserves for being a prick, Sally starts to regret her decision and goes to bed. And now, this is going to lead into another segment where I address another criticism this movie has. That being its pacing. I've seen a few people who have called this movie's pacing bad. And to that,
I say.
Yeah, you heard me. I said it. This movie's pacing is good. I actually like how with every action scene, like a race or something, this movie goes pretty fast. But then, when it needs to, it will slow down and just let what happens, happen. Sure, it may feel like it's wasting a little bit of time, but it actually makes these moments feel pretty genuine. instead of feeling rushed or sloppy. And I actually really like it. I especially like how this next scene actually just shows the townies enjoying the road. Instead of them just being like, oh, McQueen has to get the rest of the road done, we're not done yet, they actually just celebrate this small victory. And I think that is all because they just enjoy the journey in life. And they really just want to enjoy every moment that they can. Of course, Doc is wondering where the hell McQueen went, to which he finds Sheriff watching him at Willie's Butte. He finds out that Lightning has been trying to make the left turn using dirt. He actually tries to give Lightning a little bit of advice on this, but Lightning thinks his phrase, turn right to go left, is completely insane, so Doc, thinking he'll never learn, just gives up. And McQueen completely misunderstands what he even said. Luigi and Guido try to offer McQueen tires, but he keeps refusing, remember for later. So Red cleans him up, and Sally offers him to stay at the Cozy Cone Motel. McQueen is actually genuinely surprised by this. And this was pretty much the scene where he began to learn a thing or two. Oh yeah, I also glossed over this, but Sheriff put Mater in charge of watching McQueen tonight, and so he decides to actually hang out with McQueen. So they end up going tractor tipping. And at first, McQueen just sees this as a very, very ridiculous type of hobby for Mater to have. Of course, Mater doesn't just tell McQueen to go down there, he also tells him to watch out for Frank, but doesn't explain who he is. So, Mater explains the game to McQueen, and so... Now, if you're like me, you typically hate these jokes. But here, I actually don't mind it. The joke is so unfunny that even McQueen finds it absurd. Plus, that wasn't even the base of the joke. The joke was actually that Mater just had fun tipping over the tractor. Plus, the whole integrity of this scene is just how it shows that McQueen and Mater are slowly becoming friends. Mater already thinks that McQueen is his friend, while McQueen, of course, resents him. But every second that McQueen spends with him, he's starting to grow more and more on McQueen. Also, this may be the best time to mention this since Pixar released this on their YouTube channel a few days ago, but very good job to Owen Wilson and Larry the Cable Guy for voicing these two characters, as well as every other voice actor in this movie who did a very good job voicing their respective characters. There is a part of the cast that I wanted to talk about, but we'll actually get to that later, more so towards the end of the video. But the point is, everyone who voices these characters, from Owen Wilson to the most minor voice, they all did a good job making these characters feel alive. But enough about that. Mater gives McQueen his turn, and so he ends up waking up the entire field because of his loud engine, leaving them both pretty surprised at how it turned out. But they end up getting a good laugh out of just how absurd it was. That is, until they hear Frank.
That's Frank.
My gosh, what an absolutely wild chase scene. I love Mater's reactions throughout this entire chase scene. He isn't taking this serious, obviously, but he's just that kind of guy who enjoys the thrill of danger. Obviously, Mater doesn't want to put anyone in danger, but he just thinks he's having a pretty fun time with his friend. It's the kind of thing I like about a comic relief character, having their own little smart type of logic in their own way. Well, of course it is still stupid in general. Anyways, they escape the tractor field and Frank and head back into town. Also, if you listen closely, you can actually hear McQueen laughing, implying that he actually enjoyed the whole thing in general. They return to Radiator Springs, and Mater starts teasing McQueen about how he loves Miss Sally, as Mater puts it, by the way. And we actually hear McQueen genuinely telling Mater to stop driving backwards because he thinks he's actually going to crash.
Will you stop that?
Stop what?
That driving backwards stuff, it's creeping me out. You're gonna wreck or something.
But Mater insists that he's actually the world's best backwards driver, and so we actually get a whole scene dedicated to him backwards driving. McQueen's acting a little bit less like a dick, and then we get one of the best lines in the movie.
There ain't no need to watch where I'm going. Just need to know where I've been.
Whoa, that was incredible. How'd you do that?
Rear view mirrors. We'll get you some and I'll teach you if you want.
I know some people have been asking, why do the cars have rear view mirrors? But I think Mater answered it perfectly for us. Mater gets it, why don't you?
Yeah, maybe I'll use it in my big race.
Mater asks McQueen what the race is, and Lightning tells Mater about it. To which he starts talking about how he hopes to become part of Dynaco and leave rusty cars behind, forgetting that Mater is literally a rusty tow truck.
What's wrong with rusty old cars?
Well, I don't mean you, Mater. I mean other old cars. You know, not like you. I like you.
Nah, it's okay, buddy.
Mater then asks McQueen if there's a chance that he could get to ride in a helicopter someday, to which McQueen just shrugs it off and says, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it. To which we get some more of the best lines in this movie.
I knowed I made a good choice.
In what?
My best friend.
I don't care what you all say, Mater is a great character. He may not be the smartest guy out there, but he's a real one. For me personally, comic relief characters are pretty hit or miss. When done right, we can actually have pretty good characters who contribute something to the plot while still being comic relief. When done wrong, however, we get guys like this. Mater is not that type of comic relief character, though. He's actually a great one. He's funny, while also being very loyal, and he has his own type of common sense. And he's also a very big part of the reason why McQueen became a better person. And that's not even to mention how he genuinely likes helping other cars as a tow truck. Seriously, what do you guys have against this guy? Oh, that's right. Anyways, Sally overheard the conversation and wanted to check up on McQueen and see if he really meant what he was preaching. To which Sally tells McQueen that Mater actually genuinely trusts him, and McQueen's just like, oh, yeah, okay. McQueen then actually thanks Sally for letting him stay in the Cozy Cone Motel, and they end up saying goodnight to each other, peacefully, on good terms. It's then that McQueen has a nightmare of Frank literally murdering Chick Hicks and winning the Piston Cup. McQueen then asks Sheriff for his daily gas rations, to which Doc tells him to wait for him at Flo's. Lightning's mad that he's wasting even more time waiting for Doc now, and McQueen then goes into Doc's garage and discovers that he was actually a Piston Cup racer at one point. And not just any Piston Cup racer, the fabulous Hudson Hornet. Doc, of course, is pretty unhappy with the fact that McQueen discovered this, so he immediately shoves him out of the garage. For those wondering how McQueen didn't recognize Doc Hudson, you gotta remember that this is literally a race car who just wanted out of the town and didn't even stop to try and connect the dots. McQueen tries to tell everyone that Doc was a famous race car, but they all laugh at him. Oh yeah, by the way, screw the whole headlights thing. This is the best joke in the whole movie.
He won 3 Piston Cups.
He did what in his cup?
Sally then fuels McQueen's tank up. Thank you, movie, for reminding me of a time when gas prices weren't so damn annoying. Sally offers McQueen a drive to go on, yet he doesn't understand what she's asking him. And McQueen, who has all the gas in his tank at the moment, decides not to try and escape the town, but to go for a drive with Sally. I think this is the moment where McQueen's switch just started. So, they end up going for a drive that kind of just turns into a little bit of a race. And as this drive goes on, he starts to race less, and more so just enjoy the beauty of this entire forest. Once they arrive at the Wheelwell Motel, McQueen finally asks Sally how she ended up in Radiator Springs, and she explains that she was actually an attorney in LA until she left, because it turns out that she was never happy. Once she broke down in Radiator Springs, she actually decided to stay there because, well, she fell in love with the town. And this is honestly what makes Sally such a great character. She wasn't just designed to be McQueen's love interest. She was also made to be a really important character who helps McQueen get through his character development. She also does a really good job getting the message across that the littler things in life will always make you happy. Meanwhile, stuff like fame and fortune and money, that won't. Her being an attorney from LA formerly actually foils to McQueen's character pretty well. While he wished to be in the fast lane, Sally wished to be out of it. And as this movie goes on, she continues to help him more and more, and is one of the reasons why McQueen changes in the end. As McQueen admires the atmosphere from up in Tailfin Pass, he notices the cars that are driving on the interstate and missing Radiator Springs, to which Sally starts to tell him the story of what happened 40 years ago. She explains the story about how Radiator Springs used to be a very popular stop on the Mother Road, until the interstate was built so that the cars could get to their destinations faster. You see, the cars didn't travel through Radiator Springs to make great time, but they drove on it to have a great time. One of the stupidest and snobbish criticisms I have seen for Cars has been, why are the characters cars? Why can't this be a human story? They could just be humans and nothing would change. And to that I say, well, you're right about one thing. They could be humans and nothing would change. Except this shit, mind you. But you clearly overlook the thematic purpose of these characters being cars. You see, a car has one purpose. It's to get you from point A to point B. Race cars like McQueen are only built for one thing, and one thing only: going fast. McQueen is stuck riding around in his hauler, so he can never actually go out on the road and drive slow. The characters being cars adds more flavor to the story, as well as it does the message of the movie, which is to slow down and enjoy life. And that's why it's sad in the townies when the cars passing by Radiator Springs didn't take their time to stop and see the sights. It is such a wholesome tribute to Route 66, and I am all here for it. For those who don't know, there's actually a town in real life that Radiator Springs is based off of, that's in Route 66, that also got less followers coming to it, and that's exactly what this movie's trying to point out. The idea for this revamped version of Cars actually started when John and his wife went down on a road trip, and they eventually came across Route 66, which is where they got the idea for this film. And I think that a machine being built to go so fast is very good symbolism for this movie. Plus, I can think of other movies that have also done this symbolism thing, but could have their characters change to humans and nothing would change. So, hypocritical much? Unfortunately, as time went on, more and more of the buildings in town started to close. But the townies who were still there remained, because they truly cared about the town, and they wanted to wait for the day when it would strive again. And this is the point in the story, when McQueen finally realizes just how truly special the town is to Sally and its residents. Throughout this whole movie, Lightning McQueen has just been on this whole journey. Throughout this whole movie, he's been this arrogant, whiny little dickhead who you just kind of like seeing get what he deserves. But at the same time, he wasn't just this complete irredeemable jerk who had no good in him. He clearly had some respect for the older generations, like the king, for example, here. And he also had respect for Mac, who was pretty much the only guy who he treated like a somewhat friend. And even though he doesn't want to admit it, there are actually moments where he shows that he's not truly happy without friends, or with fame instead. McQueen knew he wanted attention, but what he didn't realize is that it was right there, and that he was pushing it away. He thinks that being famous will get it for him, but oh, boy is he wrong. And as we saw a few scenes ago, he started slowly becoming a better car. And now at this scene, he's just about reached that point. Anyways, McQueen thanks Sally for the drive, and then Mater comes up to him and tells him to say that they were out smashing mailboxes, because guess what? Tractor stampede. McQueen follows one of the tractors out to the desert where he finds Doc Hudson, who is actually thinking about driving. But Doc has no idea how to feel about doing this, since it has been 50 years since he has gone this fast. But he starts up his engine, and he does it anyways. And he managed to do it again like he hadn't missed a race in a while. Of course, when he gets to the turn that McQueen had not learned, McQueen worries for him, thinking he's gonna fall into the cactus. But Doc actually does the very trick that McQueen was trying to do, but never knew how to. And for the first time in a while, Doc had actually been his true self. McQueen compliments Doc on just how well he did, only for Doc to just storm off mad. At his garage, McQueen finally asks how the hell a car like him could quit, to which Doc shares a piece of his past with McQueen. It turns out that in 1954, he had a big crash, which would end his racing career. And after finally being repaired, he went back to the track, only to be told that he was history, and that he would be replaced by the next rookie waiting for his turn. He personally felt like there was a lot left in him that he never got to show. And the truth is, he's right. There really was a lot left in him that he never got to show, because it was just the year after his third Piston Cup in a row. Plus his tremendous skill of driving that he had just shown in the previous scene as well. Doc views McQueen as a symbol of pain, and he tries to use Radiator Springs as a wall, so that way he doesn't ever have to feel hurt again. Lightning and Doc also both learn something about themselves in this scene. Lightning learns just how arrogant and selfish he really was, while Doc learns that he's been pretty much using the townies just so that he can hide from the racing world. Doc dismisses this criticism by telling McQueen to just finish the road and get out, to which we cut to the next morning where McQueen has finished the road and it seems like he has left. The townies actually really miss this guy, but wait a minute, it turns out he actually hasn't left yet. And not only that, but he actually wants to buy from their stores. So we get a cute little montage where McQueen just goes around from store to store buying stuff from them, and then eventually he comes out of Ramon's house of body art looking brand spanking new. So it turns out that the townies fixed their neon, and now we get a beautiful montage of the townies just enjoying the town being brought back to life. And McQueen joins in on it. After all, it's all thanks to him that the town was able to find a new spark. Everything seems like it's going great at first. That is, until they found him. Doc had called the newscast and told them that McQueen was in Radiator Springs, to which McQueen's actually just kind of in shock on what's even going on. He realizes that he has to say goodbye to the town, but for some reason, he can't do it. He's grown so attached to the place. Something is telling him not to leave, but he's forced into the trailer, and without even getting to say goodbye, he leaves. McQueen had grown so much on the town that the idea that he was leaving just made it feel empty again. Sally asks Doc if this was best for everybody or if it was best for him. Basically just asking, did Doc really do it for the town or for himself? And as Doc sees just how sad the rest of the town is, he realizes the mistake he's made. He realizes that McQueen had actually changed. And staring into the night, he's just wondering how the hell he's gonna make this up to them. Wow, kid. You know, I love how you're going so far to praise the hell out of this movie. I mean, really, what effort you must have put into this video. But I have to break it to you, the Cars franchise was only made in the first place just to sell toys, and that was about it. I mean, what else do you expect from— No! You're debunking that argument right now. The Cars franchise was not made solely for toys. I am so sick and tired of hearing that criticism just thrown out there in the— Look, here's the thing. In the first place, Cars was not made to sell toys. It was actually made by a bunch of people who were passionate about vehicles, who were really major car buffs. They cared so much that they put so much love and effort into this movie. It's just that Disney looked at this movie and saw it as nothing more than a cash grab. And so they used Cars and made all sorts of stuff in order to sell toys. And besides, Pixar had already been doing this whole movies with a toy line thing for years before Cars. It's just that with Cars was more marketable because it had more background characters to make die-casts off of. So why not have your own Hot Wheels type of die-cast line for a franchise about racing vehicles? I'm not trying to excuse anything here, but the point is, Cars was not made in the first place for diecast. It's just that eventually it got its own diecast line. And that's the reason why we've been getting more and more of these diecasts over time, for better or for worse. Now, with that out of the way, let's kick off to the climax of this movie. The next day, it's the big race, and everyone is excited for it. There's a sellout crowd. Half the country is shut down so many experts can watch what they're calling the race of the century. Dale Jr. wishes the king good luck, and Chick Hicks is, well, he's famous now. And we get a Mario Andretti cameo. Cool. So, McQueen is still trying to get prepared for the race, but this time, he starts thinking about the townies. This time, Mac knocks on his trailer, and McQueen is more noticeably nervous than confident, like he was at the start of the film. But he still heads out there anyways. Mac volunteers to be his pit crew for the day, and you can see that McQueen's being even more respectful here, since he's actually saying, "Thanks for being my pit crew today." And anyways, so the race starts, and McQueen still can't stop thinking about Radiator Springs. No matter how hard he tries to race, it has just plagued his mind, and he tries his best to focus on the race, but every time his mind drifts off, and he just can't. McQueen doesn't think he'll be able to focus on the race anymore. He is just completely out of it today. But then over the radio, he hears a voice. And who is it? Why, it's none other than Doc Hudson. And guess who showed up in his pits? It was none other than the Radiator Springs Townies. Lightning is overjoyed to see that his friends came back, and that Doc Hudson is now his crew chief. And now, they're here at the race to help him win. Doc had decided to fix what he had done wrong by facing his past, telling the townies the truth, and getting back into the racing world as McQueen's crew chief. And boy, did he make up for it. Lightning has regained the confidence to go out there and race, so much so that he manages to pass the King and Chick Hicks and get back on the lead lap. But of course, it takes him a while to get there eventually. So, he gets there, but Chick Hicks is not having it. However, Lightning actually remembers something useful that Mater taught him, and he uses it to his advantage. However, Chick manages to pop McQueen's tire, forcing a caution to come out and for McQueen to go down to pit road. Luckily, he gets the help of none other than Guido. Man, remember how I mentioned earlier that this thing would be set up? Well, it was set up rightly. This movie has some of the best subtle foreshadowing that I have ever seen, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I've kind of been hinting at this for a while now, so I guess now's the time to talk about some really good foreshadowing details. The first subtle foreshadowing detail revolves around McQueen not being able to turn on dirt that well, which becomes a pretty big problem throughout the whole movie. Speaking of which, I'm about to bring up the conclusion to that problem in just a few minutes. Or how Mater taught McQueen to backwards drive, and it helped him in the Los Angeles race. McQueen gets back out there to the second to last lap, but then the white flag is out, and there's one lap to go. Doc tells McQueen to go in there and pass him, but not before Chick manages to cause a move that gets him and the King loose and McQueen in the infield. But then McQueen remembers what Doc did and uses that to his advantage. McQueen finally learned how to turn on dirt, and he used it at the right time. And now, McQueen has this race in the bag. He's heading for the checkered flag. He's going to be the first rookie in Piston Cup history to win a championship. Okay, wait a minute. This is going to be my second minor gripe with the movie, but why the hell is Sally back at Radiator Springs? I feel like she and Sheriff should have swapped positions. It made more sense for her to be here. Why the hell is she not? But this doesn't break the film or anything, so it's just a minor nitpick. Anyways, McQueen's about to win the race, but then Chick ultimately pulls a move that just ends up crashing the game. Lightning's just racing towards the checkered flag, but he notices the crowd has just gone silent. He looks up and sees that the King has crashed, and he's reminded of Doc's crash and how he never got to finish his last race. So Lightning slams on the brakes. Okay, you know what? You guys get what I'm saying. Lightning stops before the finish line. Chick proceeds to pass him, winning the Piston Cup. The whole crowd is shocked at this. Now, a lot of people say that McQueen should have just crossed the finish line and then helped the King out, but it's actually illegal for a car to cross the checkered flag and win the race and then back up minutes later. And not only that, but it misses the point of the movie. McQueen gave up this championship to do something more noble, to help the retiring champion finish his last race. The King even asks him this question.
You just gave up the Piston Cup. You know that?
This grumpy old race car I know once told me something.
It's just an empty cup.
And by the way, I love how John fit this line in here about how self-aware he was when it came to NASCAR's rule about how it's illegal to push on the last lap.
Daryl, is pushing on the last lap legal? Hey, man, he's not really pushing him. He's just giving him a little bump draft.
Of course, Chick's celebrating the victory, but he's wondering what's going on. And then, Venus finishes last race, and Lightning has finished dead last. But it doesn't matter. It's an empty cup. Everyone's proud of him for his very good sportsmanship. Meanwhile, Chick, on the other hand, is getting what he absolutely deserves.
Kachika, say it with me. Kachika, Kachika. What's wrong with everybody? Ow! Where's the happiness? Hey, this is the start of the Chick era.
A lot of people were asking why the hell Chick didn't get his championship revoked for something this outrageous. And yeah, for something like that, he probably should have at least gotten some kind of penalty. But I think the point was made very clear. Chick won, yes. But does it matter? It's just an empty cup. So no, it shouldn't. And by doing this, he ultimately serves as a mirror to what McQueen could have become had he not gone to Radiator Springs. McQueen then heads over to his team after bringing strip letters to his Dinoco tent. And everyone's happy with him. And everyone's proud of him. Especially Doc.
You got a lot of stuff, kid.
Thanks, Doc.
The two had finally grown close together. Tex Dinoco then comes over to McQueen and asks him to race for Dinoco. McQueen even acknowledges, like, wait a sec, I didn't win. You should be offering Chick this. But Tex tells him that there's a whole lot more to racing than winning. And of course he was right. Lightning tells Tex, however, that he'd rather stick with the Rusty guys because he gave him his big break. Tex respects this and tells McQueen that if there's ever anything he would do, he should just let him know. And McQueen accepts that. And then he remembers a promise he made to a very special friend. Back at Radiator Springs, Mater is having the time of his life in the Dinoco helicopter. And we get a nice payoff to the Ferrari joke with Luigi, with a cameo with Michael Schumacher Ferrari. I, again, really love this cameo because this makes the world of cars feel more alive. The Queen meets up with Sally, and he has a paint job that's really shown just how much he has embraced the town. And it turns out that he's moving his new racing headquarters here. And because of that, Radiator Springs is back on the map. And we almost get a scene where McQueen and Sally kiss until Mater interrupts. Anyways, McQueen and Sally race on down to Flo's. The movie ends just like that. But first we gotta talk about the epilogue here. I'm glad they didn't just end the movie off just like that. They actually showed us a few new things. They showed us how Radiator Springs is back on the map and thriving again. We got to see Sheriff arresting the delinquent road hazards for speeding. Doc has now trained McQueen for the next Piston Cup season, and these two are getting along very well. Sarge has reopened his boot camp to invite these 4 SUVs into it. We now know what happened to Mayor's hood, and we get what is one of my favorite parts of this whole movie, the Pixar spoofs. They do this great thing where they have Pixar parodies of the other movies, but with cars. And words cannot express how much I love this. It's especially funny because it shows off Mac reacting to his own voice, which is just absolutely hilarious. And with that, the movie is over. For real this time.
In conclusion, Cars is a film that is very, very special to me. For so many reasons. It has an amazing story, great characters, stunning racing scenes, awesome animation, and a very clever message that is well executed using the thematic purpose of the characters being cars. It is not a perfect movie, mind you, but to me, it is one of, if not the best film that Pixar has ever put out. And as a matter of fact, it's my favorite movie of all time. Now, there might be objectively better movies out there, and that's fine. But Cars is my personal favorite, and I will never understand how anybody could ever come out of it not loving it. And hey, for all you out there who are still watching this video, if you disagree with me on what I'm saying here and still think that Cars is the quote-unquote black sheep of the studio, it's perfectly fine if we disagree. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I can respect that. But I will say this though, maybe you should actually try to rewatch Cars and understand it a little bit more. Because if you take a more analytical look at it and actually try to think, maybe you'll discover that the film that you said was the black sheep of the studio was actually the best film they made all along. What makes Cars even more special is just how much I can relate to it all these years later. I can relate to Lightning because back in 2023, I was something else. Yeah, I was a complete weirdo back then. I'm pretty sure anyone from 2023 can tell you that I was. And I also thought I was better off without making friends at school. Now, I've actually made all sorts of friends at school, and I couldn't be happier with that. But I'm also kind of sad too, because most of my friends are seniors this year, and well, once this video's come out, they'll have already graduated high school, and I'll still be in school. I'm not gonna say what grade I am in, but I am also nearing the end of my high school days, and it's making me sad how I'm saying goodbye to so many of these friends. Lightning got what he finally wanted. He wanted out of the town. He just didn't realize how painful it would be. And I'm getting what I finally wanted, for Summer to be here. And I actually didn't know how painful it would be. As for Doc, I can relate to him. Not because I was a race car driver who got told to beat it, or a person in a sport who got told to beat it because he got injured. More specifically, because I think a lot of us can relate to Doc without really needing to go through what he went through. The way I can relate to Doc is because if you have watched my channel, then you will know that I am a very creative person who absolutely loves creating his own Cars fan stories. I've gotten to share so many stories with you guys over the last few years, and after this video, there are actually more stories that I want to show you guys, but more on that another time. But as I've gotten older, I've had to focus more and more on my own priorities, the real world stuff that's more important, and I've noticed that the magic has been getting sucked out of me in favor of focusing on these priorities. And I feel like all that magic is not ready to fade away yet. Like, I feel like there's still a lot I have left to do in terms of the stories I want to tell. And that's why I can relate to Cars so much. Over the last 20 years, Cars has become more and more of a franchise with its tons of video games, its 2 sequels, and 3 TV shows, including a new one that's coming out next year, even if I'm kind of dreading said new one, but that is besides the point. But the first film will always hold a very special place in my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.